The session is titled Developing World-Class Ports. I am Sanjay Sethi. I am the chairman of Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust. I and my colleague Vineet Kumar, we are the conveners for this session. Vineet is the chairman of Paradeep and Kolkata Port Trust. Before we go ahead, we have a short film which will set the context for this session. Can we put on the film, please?
Globally, the maritime trend is towards larger vessels, so deep draft keys are needed. The shipping market is consolidating and regional ports are becoming increasingly competitive. They are expected to have faster turnaround times and higher efficiency, and the latest equipment with digitized systems. This will reduce operating costs and increase productivity. Today, for maritime nations, there is a common need for developing world-class ports. To compete effectively on a global scale, there is a need to revolutionize this sector by developing megaports with world-class infrastructure, improving the performance of ports to world-class levels through smart ports, digitization, skills development, infrastructure development, and evolving models for port development. The first step in this direction is to create megaports with world-class infrastructure. This will lead to 10 to 15% lower operational costs, the ability to handle larger ships like the Cape-sized vessels, and the economic development of the hinterland. Existing ports can be upgraded to smart ports by integrating new technologies that will make maritime trade paperless and also benefit the smart port ecosystem as a whole. Digitization is the key, with system-driven performance monitoring. The integrated digital project management office at each port, combined with the e-business suite, will measure 30 critical parameters. Everything from ship turnaround time through individual crane efficiency to cargo evacuation from the terminal. Equally important is skills development. To reach global standards, we need to nurture a skilled labor force. To accelerate world-class infrastructure development, there is a need to define a draft increase strategy to handle different sized vessels, enable ancillary services offerings based on cargo profiles, and launch central tracking for all ports to achieve best-in-class performance targets. Financing will be done through a combination of private-public partnership model of funding and the futuristic landlord model, where appropriate, leasing to private companies to operate independently. Today, we have eminent leaders of the industry among us who will speak in detail on different topics.
Thank you. For most countries in Asia and the Pacific, shipping represents a doorway to the global economy. And for some of them, it is a lifeline for social and economic development. While COVID-19 pandemic has impacted maritime trade and disrupted global supply chains, it has also presented a unique opportunity. The accelerated digitization in the shipping sector, and also an opportunity to come together to coordinate regional response plans that look to the future. As we just saw in the film, the global maritime trade is going through a transition. Global ports and terminals are becoming faster, more streamlined, and more environment friendly. There have been cascading effects in larger ship sizes, consolidation of shipping market, regional competition between ports, a reconfiguration of supply and demand chains, and improvement of port productivity. The world definitely is moving towards smart and mega ports, and today's session, that's what we are going to discuss. The three components of developing world-class ports. The first, developing mega ports. Second, improving the performance of existing ports, which would include smart ports, digitization, skills development, infrastructure development, but we would focus on the smart ports and the digitization part, as some of these are being taken up in other sessions. The third part is the evolving models for port development, the public-private partnerships, and the landlord model. When we discuss mega ports, there is definitely a realization that the cost of not creating mega ports is higher than creating them. The three key criteria for mega ports, including the deep draft, the effective hinterland connectivity, and the land availability, so as to create a sustainable industrial ecosystem, are what we are probably going to discuss. In our maritime vision, we have planned at least 3 greenfield mega ports in the next decade. One of these ports, which have already been cleared by the cabinet, the Vadhavan port, is being developed by JNPT. With a 19-meter draft, 23 million TEUs handling capacity, and about 10,000 hectares of land for industrial clusters, this is set to be one of the largest ports in the coming years. On the smart ports part, there are many global examples of smart initiatives. Port of Rotterdam, laying 42 kilometers of sensors to collect real-time data. Port of Valencia, installing network of black boxes across 200 cranes, trucks, forklifts, mainly to enhance cargo lifting. The blockchain used in container collection at Port of Antwerp. All these and more we could be discussing in the smart ports part. The digital uses could thus be deliberated across marine operations, terminal operations, port operations, stakeholder operations, customer experience, and benchmarking. It is established that artificial intelligence-enabled port ecosystem increases collaboration between different stakeholders. IoT systems automate the acquisition and processing of supply chain data, or for that matter, other emerging technologies like robotics and drone are going to shape the future of logistics. The third component, or the third vertical, that as we are calling as the PPP or the landlord model, we are quite confident that the experience of PPPs across the world will be discussed in these sessions. Ports have become incredibly significant, with world economies being closely linked to trade and fluctuating GDP. Global ports have undertaken multiple forms of private participation for different infrastructure and services across ports' value chain. We will learn from the examples across the world so as to use it not just in our country, but the various participants from various other countries as well. To discuss this and more, we have a very impressive lineup of speakers: Mr. Wang Chi-Fu from PSA, Mr. Jean Seroka from the Port of Los Angeles, Mr. Tanaka Tashimitsu, I'm sorry if I have not said it right, from Port of Osaka, Mr. Christoph Waterspoot from Port of Antwerp, Mr. Rizwan Suma from DP World, Dhruv Kotak from JM Bakshi Group, Mr. Samir Garde from Cisco, and Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, who is the Secretary, Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Government of India. I'm very confident that today's deliberations will define a blueprint for the future of ports, not just in India, but regionally and globally. Before I invite the first speaker, I'm very happy to announce and use this platform to tell you that MOUs worth almost 12 billion US dollars have been signed by the three ports which the two conveners are representing here. So about 4.2 billion US dollars for JNPT and approximately 3.9 billion US dollars each for Paradeep and Kolkata. The first speaker we have is Mr. Wang Chi-Fu, who's the regional CEO of Middle East and South Asia and head group business development. He bears the overall responsibility for PSA Group's portfolio of operating terminals, investments, and expansion in Middle East and South Asia. He is also responsible for identifying and developing new business opportunities around the world. May I invite him to speak on the rationale for megaports and the opportunities and challenges there. Mr. Wang Chi-Fu.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon and namaste, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests from Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Chairman Conveners of JNPT, Kolkata and Paradeep Port Trust, and members of the Organizing Committee. My heartiest congratulations on the Maritime India Summit 2021. And thank you very much for inviting PSA to address this summit. This past year, COVID-19 has globally impacted economic sectors, and our maritime sector certainly has been no exception. While the sector has demonstrated great resilience, it will be pertinent to acknowledge the efforts of the Ministry of Ports and Shipping and the Port Trust for their support throughout these testing times. PSA has been operating in India for over 20 years, and we've always been alongside, ensuring incessant services to the country and to the trade. Our terminals in Tuticorin, Chennai, Kolkata, and Mumbai have continued to operate throughout the pandemic without any stoppages, handling every scheduled vessel and many more. We recently celebrated our third anniversary of PSA Mumbai at GMPT in February, and we have very quickly reached our 2 million TEU since startup, thanks to the support of the ecosystem. Today, I would like to focus my thoughts on the opportunities and challenges I see for GMPT to be a megaport for the future. The definition of megaport has historically been a combination of cargo volumes handled as well as the physical attributes, with the added attraction of the much vaunted multiplier effect on the creation of jobs and industries, and hence its exponential effect on the economy. These definitions are just as valid in 2021, and certainly with an annualized volume of over 5 million TEUs, GMPT has both the size and the scale. Capacity bottlenecks have been unlocked, with PSA Mumbai Phase 1 being developed on time in 2018, and with the upcoming completion of Phase 2, GMPT's capacity will double to nearly 10 million TEUs, truly making JMPT a megaport. Given GMPT's proximity to the mega hinterland and serving Maharashtra, which it itself is a mega cargo generating area, ladies and gentlemen, I firmly believe JMPT is very well positioned to be India's megaport of the future. But other attributes are now very necessary to remain a megaport club. Seamless physical and digital connectivity, innovation, sustainable development, and, as we have learned this year, resilience. There are many ingredients to creating a megaport, but just as with the recipe, how these ingredients are prepared and combined to give the optimal outcome is as important as the ingredients themselves. We believe JMPT has many of these attributes to grow as a preeminent megaport. Digitalized information is now also part of the infrastructure requirements. After all, ports not only connect cargo safely and efficiently, but also connect the information which is needed to provide end-to-end visibility and to ensure mega movements of cargo are optimized. Great strides have been made in this area through the logistics database, with every container being RFID tracked and its journey across India being tracked in real time. And recently, this allowed us to record a transit time of just 38 hours from unloading a vessel at PSA Mumbai to the container arriving by train in Delhi. The second important megaport ingredient is the importance of having good physical landside connectivity to the hinterlands, something that is increasingly becoming a global issue given the advent of mega vessels that come with mega call sizes. GMPT has the vision and was able to think big years in advance by planning for PSA Mumbai as a terminal able to handle complete 360 TEU dedicated freight corridor trains, quadrupling the existing train size. We are eagerly awaiting the linking of DFC to GMPT, which will transform us into a mega marine and rail terminal with these DFC trains, which will bring benefits to the supply chain and to the trade. The third megaport ingredient is the regulatory framework, which has also become as important as the digital and physical aspects. Mega projects mean mega risk, and in order to attract investors, it is essential that regulatory frameworks and concessions are structured well to lower execution risks and to provide a level playing field. Doing so will lower the project risks and costs, which in turn will be of great benefit to boosting the competitiveness of the trade. We believe that with the technological advances being made as part of India's drive into the renewable sector, it will not be long before we can have a megaport entirely driven by renewable energy, just as a number of airports here are. GMPT's recent MOU with electricity suppliers for open access should soon allow terminals to contract directly with renewable suppliers and lower the carbon footprint. The increased presence of EVs also augurs well in supplementing India's laudable efforts to reduce greenhouse gases. JM Port has a physical scale, mega market and digital connectivity, forward-looking regulatory and sustainability frameworks, all the ingredients for a megaport. But even the best ingredients in the world will be nothing without a chef to bring it all together. So I'm sure many of you have watched MasterChef. So in this increasingly complex and volatile world, JN Port Trust is that master chef, adding that masala to the ingredients. The masala will be JMPT's leadership to foster close collaboration across the operators, railways, port users, and orchestrating the many moving parts to operate together as one megaport system. PSA is very proud to be alongside and to be part of JNPT, India's megaport of the future. So once again, I thank the conveners and organizers for this opportunity to participate in this summit.
Thank you very much, and thanks for keeping the time as well. We heard some very useful pointers and indicators to how JNPT can become a mega port and how we could be learning from the Singapore port, which happens to be the mega port currently. Thank you very much once again. The next speaker we have is Mr. Jean Seroka, who is the Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles, the busiest container port in North America. The port has experienced historic, record-breaking performances since his appointment. Under his direction, the port has taken a leadership role in adopting cutting-edge technologies to improve the reliability, predictability, and efficiency of the flow of cargo. He will focus on the PPPs and landlord model as the emerging models for port development. Over to you, Jean.
Chairman, thank you very much, and good afternoon, delegates. I believe we have a couple of slides to show, but to start off, the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, the San Pedro Bay ports in Southern California, accommodate 40% of the U.S. worldwide imports and manage 30% of its exports today. working with a variety of private sector partners, including more than 200,000 cargo owners on an annual basis, 18,000 truckers, 2 Western railroads that move 100 trains per day, equivalent to about 5 kilometers. The Port of Los Angeles was built on a public-private partnership model that dates back to the year 1907. The economic, much like other ports around the world represented by my esteemed colleagues this afternoon, can also not be understated. The Port of Los Angeles accounts for nearly 1 million jobs in the Southern California region and 3 million nationwide. But the most important is that the cargo that traverses our port on an annual basis reaches each and every one of our nation's 435 congressional districts. This truly becomes a conversation of national and international consequence very quickly. The Port of Los Angeles today, we manage more than 3,100 hectares of property and 75 kilometers of waterway. But the work begins with all these partners that I mentioned and how they come together and invest collectively in not only our infrastructure, but our workforce, community, and our environmental strategy. The business models that have been designed here in the United States, as defined by the United States Army Corps of Engineers, fall into 3 basic categories. The landlord port, which relies on its private sector partners to draw business, create job opportunities. The operating port, whose leadership takes it upon themselves to manage the flow of cargo, or manage vessels, rail, and truck activity without outside investment. And the third and emerging concept is that of a hybrid port, one who plays on both sides, acting as a landlord and an operator, and equally as important, bringing in world-class talent and investment to manage its port's activities and growth. In those models on the West Coast of the United States, and specifically in Los Angeles, we had been known for decades as that landlord port. The investment spec ranged from domestic US companies, such as railroads and marine terminal operators, to international mega companies and those who have invested in landside operations. Recently, in the past decade, we've all seen a tremendous influx of private equity and institutional banking that finds infrastructure to be a very attractive investment with long-term growth opportunities and stability. All of those combined create opportunities for the port of the future. At the Port of Los Angeles, these opportunities also look well beyond the traditional bricks and mortar of infrastructure investment. We have visitor serving opportunities for retail, dining, and entertainment, drawing more than 3 million visitors to our newly developed Los Angeles waterfront to bring friends and family together, and boasting the state of California's largest restaurant with nearly 2 million visitors annually to one particular location to eat, drink, and spend time with family and friends. Those investments also range into new areas. While we continuously look for infrastructure capabilities and those partners that help us design, develop, build, and operate, under that model, we're also seeing new and unique opportunities for further investment. Institutional banks and private equity firms that I mentioned, partnering with international companies in transportation, both surface as well as land-based, we now see what real opportunities can provide with different sectors coming to us at the confluence of all these activities. The next area that was described briefly is also in the area of digitization, where we have found private sector technology companies and investors alike who are equally as intrigued in working in a sector where 90% of world trade moves via water. Those private sector companies are now helping us design standards and open architecture that can allow port community systems to share data across ports nationwide and across oceans globally. And finally, another area of intrigue and investment under this landlord and emerging hybrid port model is that of new technology and clean energy. At the Port of Los Angeles, we have an aspiration to become a zero emissions marine terminal operating port by the year 2030 and have zero emissions heavy duty trucks, which today move nearly 2/3 of all of our cargo in and out of the Port of Los Angeles. That zero carbon footprint on heavy duty trucks is aspired to be in place by the year 2035. So looking for partners in this area that can take the port's money, which is earned from our private sector partners and the transit of container, bulk, and liquid bulk traffic, and manufacture even more capital to accelerate technology and drive speed to market in these all-important areas to decarbonize our footprint on the ground, the water, and throughout the country. So those three areas of traditional infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and green technology creating a zero emissions footprint are the areas of focus that this landlord and emerging hybrid port will continue to move forward with now and into the future. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gene. Good afternoon, esteemed panelists and the viewers. Gene, thank you for joining at almost midnight in Los Angeles, I understand. So I know you very aptly touched the models of landlord port development, that is operator port development, landlord, and hybrid. Now in India, we are going to develop 3 mega ports in the brownfield category and 1 in the greenfield category. I would like to know from you as to what models you feel are apt from the greenfield and what are the models which are apt from the brownfield. That is the first part of the question. Second is, you also touched upon the financing models, because mega ports will involve mega financing. What kind of models for financing such large infrastructure do you suggest? I'd like to hear that from you.
Sure, two very good points, Chairman. And I think really the development of both greenfield and brownfield port footprints will be equally as important to the India economy as they are to others around the world and here in the United States. In greenfield areas, the ability to develop and manage a footprint with the newest machinery and technology, and also taking into account what that labor force can look like now and into the future, are all considerations that must be taken by the leadership and investors. On the brownfield, it affords us an opportunity to modernize, to create port and terminal concepts that can fit in vessels that have been already designed, but make them more efficient with both the digital and capital infrastructure that is going to be put in place. Both offer great opportunities, and with such consistent growth and focus from the highest levels of government in India, both can be very successful. On the investment side, what we have found are great partners, both domestically and internationally, and I believe India offers the same. In partnering with our global leaders in supply chain, liner shipping, and terminal operations, we have tried and true experience and internationally that we can tap to replicate best practices and enhance the service offering to our mutual customers. That investment catchment area can also be spread to institutional banking and private money that also see the safety and long-term effect of investing in supply chains and infrastructure. So it's with great respect that I continue to watch the development of India after having lived overseas in Asia and South Asia for more than 11 years. This conference and the spirit by which India continues to invest is a model for the world to follow very closely.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you very much. So I'll request Mr. Sethi to
Yes.
take over.
Yes, thank you, Vineet, and thank you, Jean. I think the question and answer session is going to be towards the end of the session. So for all the participants, please use the question and answer box to the right of your screen so that we collect the questions and we will ask the questions to the relevant speakers towards the end of the session. And for the speakers, please indicate the change of the slide because it's being managed centrally. So whenever you want to change the slide, please indicate that. That will help us. Thank you very much. We move to the next speaker, Mr. Tanka Toshimitsu. He is the Director General of Osaka Ports and Harbors. While he will discuss the coexistence of international logistics hub and international tourism hub at the port of Osaka, this will help us to know that how we get into improving the performance of existing ports amidst rising competition. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'm really glad to have this opportunity to introduce our port. I'm Toshimitsu Tanaka, Director General, Osaka Ports and Harbors Bureau. Now, I'd like to introduce the coexistence of international logistics and international tourism hub. My speech will cover 6 themes like this. Next page, please. Oh, this is the location of Osaka. Osaka is the second largest commercial city next to Tokyo, as well as the third largest in population. Osaka is the center of the Kansai region and tourist gateway to Kansai, which has Kyoto and Nara, many World Heritage sites, Kobe, known for its famous Kobe beef. Osaka City is very close to such tourism cities. Kyoto and Nara are 30 to 40 minutes. Also, the Kansai International Airport is just 30 to 45 minutes away. The population of Japan is 125 million, and gross domestic product, GDP, is 552 trillion yen. Osaka City's population is 2.7 million. GDP is 20 trillion yen, which is 3.6% of Japan. Kansai region's GDP is 85 trillion, and which is 16% of Japan. Otherwise, Japan's trade value is 155 trillion yen, and the trade value of Kansai, which includes Osaka Port, Kobe Port, and Kansai Airport, is 26.7 trillion yen, which is 17% of Japan. So Kansai region's economic power is almost 70% of Japan. This chart shows the volume of the international cargo. Asian cargo was 45% in 1990, but has 94% share in 2019. Osaka Port has deep connection with Asian countries, and we hope to strengthen trade relations to South Asia, including India. This is a master plan in Osaka Bay Area. In Old Bay Area, The concept is redevelopment of warehouses, transit shares, and factories. Otherwise, these three islands are man-made, all man-made. Sakishima, Light Island, this island's concept is business and commercial with sport facilities. This second island is Sports Island. Yumeshima concept is international tourism with container terminal logistics functions. These are the terminals for logistic use. Red shows container terminals and green shows ferry terminals. Osaka Port has international ferry to Busan and Shanghai and has 4 domestic ferry routes to Western Japan. The capacity of the terminal is 160,000 tons, so new terminal with 220,000 tons are now in construction and will be completed in 2024. The largest terminal at Port of Osaka is located in Yumeshima Island. We continue to develop our port facilities for user needs. One is the dredging of the main channel. The depth is 16 meters. This container terminal is the widest as a liner in Western Japan, 1,350 meters. We are now in construction for extension container yards here. In addition, we developed a new port information system called Compass. We treat 990,000 TEU now, and we will treat 1.4 million TEU in the future. This figure shows the information system Compass. Actually, traffic jam like this spot usually occur. We introduced Compass this year, which aims to improve container transportation with advanced information technology. Compass serves a platform for various information, such as trucks, gate, yard, and reduce the traffic jam and waiting time. It will be completed by 2023. Osaka Port will become one of the most advanced ports in Japan finally. I will explain 2 cases of land use conversion. The left photo, we converted the warehouses to the aquarium and the amusement facilities, Tempozan Marketplace. This aquarium has opened in 1990. The right photo is converting the factories to theme park. This is Universal Studios Japan's called USJ, which is the most popular in Osaka, Kansai. Next page, please. Please advance to the next page. Okay. Kaiyukan Aquarium is the first urban aquarium in Japan. Aquarium and the marketplace have 13.7 million visitors in the first year. The aquarium has 2.6 million visitors now. Otherwise, at Konohana Western area, Osaka City government has attracted Universal Studios as the first case in Asia. USJ has opened in 2001. A new attraction, Harry Potter, has opened in 2014, and the visitors is 1.46 million a year recently. 9 hotels have already opened around USJ. Another hotel is planned now in addition. These are the great success of redevelopment in Bay Area. Our ongoing project is to hold the World Exposition 2025 and integrated resort. We are going to create the international tourism in this Yumeshima Island. This is an image of the World Expo 2025, 6 months event and 28 million visitors. The construction cost of this expo is 18.5 million Japanese yen. In addition, we prepare 10 million yen for infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and railway. So we spend 28 million in the coming 5 years. It's a huge project. We plan to attract the IR integrated resort like Marina Bay Sands or Sentosa Island in Singapore as the same island. First stage here, IR 15 million visitors actually annually. The number of visitors will increase to 27 million at the second stage and 30 million at the third stage. This is further say today coexistence of the international logistics and international tourism hub at our port. Incidentally, the name of this island, Yumeshima, means Dream Island in English. We are moving forward for this dream to become true. Next is the final page. This figure is the Osaka scenery in Edo era, the age of samurai era 200 years ago. Osaka was called kitchen of the nation because we gathered all foods from whole country, supplies to whole country. For a long time, Osaka supplies most delicious foods such as Osaka sushi, udon, noodle, takoyaki, and okonomiyaki. I strongly recommend you to come to Osaka. Anyway, my speech is over. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there is a participant with the name Sajay. His mic is on, which is creating this disturbance, which I'm not very clear where this was coming from. But okay, now it's fine. So thank you very much. I think towards the end there was a little disturbance, but we had a very good overview of what Osaka Port and Harbors is doing. In one sense, also combining certain things to remain competitive, and a certain coexistence of various functions which ports all over the world have evolved so as to stay afloat and sometimes even do better than what they were doing before. Thank you very much once again. The next speaker we have is Christoph Waterspoot. He is the managing director of Port of Antwerp International. As an expert, he's proficient in business and regulatory issues related to the ports. His experience covers all aspects of port strategy and management, including multimodal solutions. He's also been associated with us because we have a training center here which we run in association with Port of Antwerp. Welcome, Christoph, and he will talk about smart ports and ease of doing business. And we'll also request to share the experience of landlord model at the Port of Antwerp. Over to you, Christoph.
Thank you, Sanjay. Honorable Secretary, dear Chairman, dear delegates, I'll try to start with the very simple but very nice gesture I like a lot about India, and that's to do the namaskar. But it's very difficult to do it sitting because I know it's wrong, my dear Indian friends. But take it as a gesture. Can I have my slides, please? Thank you. You can go to the next one. So, dear participants, first slide is just to show you that as Chairman GMPT told, as Port of Antwerp, we are very proud of our affiliation with India. We are by far the market leader in traffic with India between Northwest Europe and India are associated with, we have some very strong sister port agreements that are in place, amongst them with GMPT, with Mumbai Port. We have some very good collaborations with GMPT, with IMTM. We will sign during the summit with VOCPT. We're working together with IPRCL under IPA. We're working together with the Indian Chemical Council. So, and in normal times, I have the pleasure to come regularly to the beautiful country of India. Next one, please. So as Chairman GMPT shared, we're closely working together on capacity building in India. We see it as one of our one of our roles of international collaboration. And we strongly believe that sharing knowledge and best practices to improve the ease of doing business and to improve the value for the customer, to create transparency. And because I think that's one of the main messages I want to deliver today is to urge for transparency. Transparency is something we really need we really need in international supply chains. And one of the ways of doing that is through is to skill training, to capacity building, to exchange of expertise. Because it's I think it's very important when we are talking about the initiative of GMPT. It's not just Antwerp and its partners teaching something to India. It's really capacity building. It's exchanging knowledge, best practices, with the aim of increasing the ease of doing business and to increase the efficiency in the port system. Next, please. So on the ease of doing business, and I was just referring, I will be very short on the yearly report. As Belgium, the country where the Port of Antwerp is located as the second largest seaport in Europe, we are ranking #1 on best regulatory performance, on ease of doing business, on import processes, and on export processes. And according to us, why is it? It has to do with the unique synergy between maritime, hinterland transport, logistics, and industry. And it's that combination, it's trying to break the silos between maritime, hinterland, logistics, and industry, what in our opinion can really make the difference in outperforming on the import and the export regulatory performance. Next one, please. And I think this one is this slide maybe is a good summary of my short presentation. I think what are the challenges we all face, and and it's a global challenge. It has nothing to do with India, with Africa. It's a global challenge. We are still dealing with fragmented supply chains. People are responsible for every small single step in the supply chain, but there is no transparency, although a lot of efforts has been made already, also through Indian Port Community System 2.0 and so on. And globally, there is a trend, but still a lot of work to do. There is still a lot of paper-based and data duplication. This data duplication, you have to submit papers for the port, for export, for your shipping line, for customs, for other regulatory agencies. And so it creates a lot of margin for errors, and a lot of errors are made. We all know it. Also there is huge efforts are being done the last couple of years in I think in most countries in the world to work on better IT-based solutions. And then non-coordination. That's the idea of non-coordination, and that means trucks are arriving without appointments. The customs is not aware, so the shipping lines are not aware. So on better capacity utilization and to really reduce inefficiencies in the system, we all have, in our opinion, as a global port community, we still have I will say it very polite, there's still some room for improvement on the transparency, errors, and efficiency effect. Now, if you go to next one, what's, in our opinion, the role of a port? Because you can ask, okay, that's a very nice story, but what does the classic port has to do with it? We see ports as the let's call it the mastermind of the logistic system. We really believe, and then we're coming to the landlord aspect. A landlord for us is not only about, of course, it's giving out land. It's about it's about concessioning policies. It's about attracting investors, but it's also to create a good functioning ecosystem where this magic of data exchange, of collaboration between all those parties can happen. And if you're looking to this magic, we see it really as we came all from tool ports, from service ports. You see a huge trend towards landlords international, and we call it even proactive landlords or community building. And with community building, we really mean that the port is responsible for its infrastructure, of course, for giving out land, for all those basic infrastructure related tasks, but is also responsible for the digital ecosystem and for the better collaboration between all parties involved. And why is it? It's best has to do to reduce inefficiency, because we all know that port capacity is extremely expensive, and it's costing a lot for private investors, but also for government. For government, it costs a lot. So the more efficient we can use port capacity, the better it is for the whole maritime community, but also for the development of international trade and for the development and the development of all our national economies. And that's why we are such a strong believer that ports really ports and associated bodies, government institutions, organizations as an IPA in India, for instance, really need to take up this community building role and not stay only busy with managing infrastructure. Managing infrastructure remains very important, but the managing of the ecosystem will become, according to us, more and more important. Next slide. And of course, this is I will not focus more on it. That this is the same the same message where or you can on all those different steps there. We want to create transparency. Next one, please. This is just what you see here is it's not. There are a lot of ways of creating this transparency. Of course, you have a classic approaches as maritime single windows, dangerous goods applications, traffic monitoring. We are working now on cargo solutions, on container release messages, on the hinterland planning, the whole appointment system for rail, barge, container. We're working on business to government applications, further increasing transparency towards government for cargo owners. These are all applications that are developed on our platform and that we see as our role to facilitate business and to facilitate cargo, because in the end our revenue as ports is coming from cargo. So the more cargo we can attract, the more cargo that can go through our facilities, the more we will benefit. And then I'm coming to the end with next slide, please. That's about supply chain. That's and if there is one message I really want to bring, and I sincerely do hope you will keep in mind in the great work you have in front of you in India. It's rethink competitiveness by breaking down silos. It's really think about one supply chain, bringing all those actors together. There is really an active role for governments in doing that, but it's only when all those different chains of the supply chain are working together as when it's a really very good functioning competitive supply chain, we will become even more and more successful. And India has, by doing that, really the potential to further develop as a strong international maritime and port nation. So thank you very much for your attention.
That was really interesting, and breaking down the silos with all the other messages, I hope are received well and would be useful to us. Christoph, thank you very much. I move on to Mr. Rizwan Sumar, the CEO and MD Subcontinent DP World. He's an accomplished leader with a career spanning over 2 decades in the maritime and logistics sector. He spearheads DP World's operations in the Indian subcontinent region. He is responsible for driving commercial and operation strategy for the region. Uh, may I request you, Rizwan, to speak on the economics of megaports? I mean, that's the topic we had, but you're free to add whatever you want to. Over to you. Yeah.
Secretary and Chairman, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak at this plenary discussion of the Maritime India Summit 2021. Ports have been the epicenter for trade and economic growth globally. Some of the greatest industrial economic powerhouses in the world are port-based cities. Development of megaports will play a very, very important role in India's vision of becoming a 5 trillion economy and to support initiatives such as Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. To improve the competitiveness of India's products in the global market, it is very essential to encourage direct shipments and to reduce the dependence on neighboring hubs for transshipment of India's cargo. Almost 65% of Colombo's total annual cargo either originates or is destined for India. Megaports can help bring down the cost of this transshipment at other ports through direct shipment and make India much more trade competitive. We are witnessing changes in the global trade patterns and a clear shift in supply chain. India's ports will play a very, very important and a major role in capitalizing this shift to position India as a preferred trade destination. There is a universal push towards boosting efficiency, agility, leveraging economies of scale. Vessel sizes are increasing every year. The largest container ship in the world today has a capacity of 24,000 TEUs and is more than 400 meters long, requiring a draft of more than 16 meters. And in the last 7 years, the number of vessels with more than 20,000 TEU capacity has increased to almost 70. On an average, almost 10 such ultra-large vessels are entering the service every year. And to be relevant and to position ourselves as a preferred destination in this trade environment, it is very crucial that we focus on the development of megaports in India. And some of the examples, Chairman, you shared with us. I would like to share a few more examples to demonstrate the importance of megaports and the contribution to the economy. The Port of Rotterdam, for example, contributes to almost 6.2% of the GDP of Netherlands. The Jebel Port and Free Zone contributes to more than 20% of Dubai's GDP. Shanghai City, which is led by the Port of Shanghai, contributes to more than 25% of China's GDP. Port-led growth and industrialization has been a catalyst for economic development in some of the leading maritime countries in the world. Megaports leverage economies of scale to bring down the transactional and efficiency-related cost, thereby increasing the trade competitiveness. They contribute to the economy in the form of jobs during construction and subsequently for their operations and providing seamless connectivity to new markets to boost trade. Let me just give you an example of Jebel Ali. DP World operates terminals in 61 countries across 6 continents, total capacity of almost 93 million TEUs. Jebel Ali Port is among the top 10 container ports in the world, with a total capacity of 22.4 million TEUs, operating 30 berths across 4 container terminals. The Jebel Ali Port and the Free Zone is the largest port and free zone complex in the region, spread over 57 square kilometers, and has presence of almost 7,900 companies from 140 countries, and this includes about 350 logistics companies. It employs 135,000 people and facilitates trade more than 100 billion US. The container terminals at Jebel Ali Port are specially designed for the future with a cranes using IoT, machine learning, optimizing productivity and maintenance. We're piloting a new technology called Box Bay, which is a container storage yard system, and it effectively triples the capacity of the same yard size by allowing 11 high stacking with direct access to each box. So there is no shifting in the yard in that sense. And whichever box you want to access, you can actually access it right away. These technologies will actually help a lot in terms of productivity, but also bring down the cost of operation. Terminals 3 and 4, for example, in Jebel Ali has been designed to cater to the next generation of ultra-large vessels with complete digital integration. We've also reduced carbon emission by almost 30% through the use of cutting-edge technology. And digital technology is the catalyst for the development of the trade ecosystem. We've implemented Dubai Trade, which is a single window digital platform for all trade-related transactions. And it's a key enabler for ease of doing business at Jebel Ali Megaport. We're also linking the Megaport with Cargo Speed, which is a hybrid transport system for cargo and passengers based on the Hyperloop technology. And this will deliver freight at the speed of light, but at the cost of trucking. Megaports such as Jebel Ali are the need of the hour for India's growth story. However, as we move towards building ports of the future, there are factors that need to be addressed. We must ensure deep drafts for current and future needs. We also need to earmark and plan the backup land around the port for future development. This is absolutely critical. The port's master plan must factor the connectivity to industrial corridors and the consumption centers for the evacuation of cargo. Industrial estates adjoining the port should figure out in its master plan. And we must also avoid the pitfalls of a traditional port by controlling the urbanization around the port and avoiding the capacity redundancy and the cannibalization of markets. This is very important to plan capacity accordingly. We need to make our ports smart, which leverage technology such as robotics, Internet of Things, machine learning, and blockchain to manage the cargo terminals, traffic flow, customs and stakeholders, safety, security, energy and environment, as well as finances and the functional processes. Chairman, I know we're running short of time, so I just thought I'll cut my message a little short, but if there's any questions, we'll be very happy to answer. Chairman, over to you.
Thank you, Rizwan, for keeping my time. I thought I was the timekeeper, but thanks for doing that. We'll move to Mr. Dhruv Kotak, who's MD JM Bakshi Group, which is a diversified group involved in shipping and logistics. Mr. Kotak and his company is associated with developing the current port community system that has been developed for the Indian Ports Association. And while we are trying to get into various dimensions of moving from the port community system to the National Logistics Portal, I would request Mr. Kotak to share various dimensions of this journey. Over to you, Dhruv.
So thank you so much. First of all, sir, I think to the Secretary Saab and to the two most dynamic chairmen that we have in the Indian port sector, I think what a phenomenal platform for me to be able to share some of my views. Because I think in the end of the day, I think just to take forward what my colleague from Antwerp Port mentioned, it is the ports who are the real heroes. They are the ones who can enable a lot of things to happen. That enablement is not possible unless the ports don't, move policy and move guidance. So maybe if we can just start with a quick presentation and sir, I'll be quick and on time, sir. Yeah, if you can move forward, please. Yeah. Yeah, so just very quick, I think just simply what I'm, highlighting here is that I think the region that we are dealing with, which is the Indian Ocean, I think almost 50% of container traffic around the world passes through the Indian Ocean region, and 70% of all trade passes through the Indian Ocean region. So it's a very critical region that we find ourselves in, and what we're trying to build in this region. So it's very, very important. Let's move. I think ports are a critical node in India, and I think again, just taking forward a couple of statements that some of my other colleagues and eminent panelists made, some of the statements that they made around the concepts of resilience. I think for resilience to be created, you need to have a very robust functioning ecosystem, and that functioning ecosystem can only be created and developed by the ports and the port authorities. So again, to both the chairmen and the secretary on this panel, I would only urge that the role that you play in shaping and proactively shaping how policy framework is created for building this robust ecosystem. I think I cannot emphasize enough the role that you will play and you can play in achieving this. In the end of the day, you have inherently in any ecosystem, you have competing companies. You have companies which have different interests within an ecosystem: shipping lines, freight forwarders, terminal operators, intermodal companies, and they all have competing interests. So it's very important, as again, as our friend from Antwerp said, break down these silos and create, the need for a stronger ecosystem, and then the enablement for a stronger ecosystem. We're doing that. We're doing that already in India in terms of a number of enablements. That's on our right. But again, I think the ports are central to this. Can we move forward, please? Yeah, I think this is a very simple slide. It talks about the logistics costs in India. I think this is known to everyone, and I think simple solution out here. You break down the silos, you create a strong ecosystem, your costs will come crashing down. So I think let's move forward. I think the audience and everyone have seen these slides before. Can we move? Yeah, if you can move forward, please. Yeah, this is important before we put a context to moving from PCS to NLP. I think this is a basic slide which explains, what is the real journey that we've seen around the world in terms of how ports have moved from being, largely gateways, mechanical in nature, advent of containerization, EDI, the internet, and what the internet did to port community systems, what the internet did to transactions, and then where we are today, which is smart ports, and the concept where you can start having ports as platforms, ports as enabling ecosystems, which are very different. So moving from a pure service model to being a platform model is a very, very I think is the need of the hour, and is the direction that all ports, including the ports in India, are taking. If we can just move forward, please. There are two parts to digitization in ports, and I'll very quickly touch upon the horizontal piece, and I won't spend much time. I think we have a colleague from Cisco who will speak more about this, which is horizontal integration, which is really going deep into each element and making sure that you're using technology, you're leveraging technology efficiently. So I won't spend time on this. I think we have someone else who's covering more of this. Can we move forward, please? Now, what I really want to talk about is the vertical integration and where we are as India. I believe in this journey. I think in all earnest, from early parts of 2000 right till 2020, 21, India has been consistently developing its port community system, making it more robust, making sure that there are more and more stakeholders who have access to it, more and more systems get integrated to it. And there's greater and greater data flow and message exchange flow, which is happening. I guess the time has now come to make sure that we move from, and if we can just move forward, and I'll try and explain something pretty interesting. Can we move forward again? Yeah, so this is what we call the 3 dimensions, and I think this is a small matrix that we've prepared here in India. And again, to all my friends in Singapore, Antwerp, even Dubai, I think we have to realize that we're dealing with a country which has got a huge number of ports, a huge coastline, and a billion+ people. So we deal with a very, very large set of ecosystems. So when you describe ecosystem building an ecosystem in this country, that's the reason we have such dynamic officers sitting and managing it, because you're building an ecosystem of people in the maritime sector, which would run into millions of people. The affected people within that stakeholder group would be probably the size of certain countries in this world. And therefore, the way we have to go about doing it and looking at it is, first of all, the first dimension, which is what we call building the basic functionality for message exchange and for digitization. The second piece of it really is the issue around making sure that all the stakeholders are onboarded, they're exchanging messages. This can be done by consistent awareness creation on ground, but at the same time also policy advocacy and new policies created by government. And the third one, which is the third dimension, which is where I believe we have now reached, because I think the Indian government has spent robust time between the first and the second dimension building processes, building systems, making sure that people are using them, making sure that all stakeholders are on board and awareness is created. And now moving to the third dimension, which is actually platforms, transactions, and then using that data flow, using that transaction flow to create new business models that help India leapfrog from being not just an internet-driven economy to being completely a platform-driven economy that can lever technologies of the future. So again, I think I've run out of time, but I think this is, I would say, the most critical element of what we have done in India, and again, a showcase to the world is complexity. Our policymakers, our leaders of industry are dealing with to try and execute something like this and doing it extremely successfully. Sir, thank you so much for the opportunity and time, and we look forward to continuing to contribute to try and build this platform into a world-beating platform and taking India to its rightful place as a leader and as a leader of trade and an optimal destination for trade around the world. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. That was super energetic. I think hope this energy will get into all the projects that you associate with the government of India, with all the related agencies. We have the next speaker. That's Mr. Sameer Garde, who's the president, Cisco India and SAARC. He spearheads Cisco's objective to be a transformational partner to the government across states and cities to provide customers with the right foundation for their digital businesses. Over to you, Sameer, for discussing the emerging technologies for port operations.
Thank you so much. And I must say, I'm probably the only odd one standing out over here. A lot of experts here on ports. And a lot of people who are all wearing ties. I'm probably the only one who's not wearing a tie and a coat. So can we go back a slide? I'll let you know when you need to move forward, please. Okay. So firstly, I want to thank you, thank Vicky, thank Mr. Sanjay Sethi, Mr. Sanjeev Ranjan, Vineet, Chairman Paradeep. And of course, I learned a lot in the last 4 sessions from Jean, from Wanchi, Tanaka-san, Christoph, Rizwan, and Dhruv. And I must say, a lot of what I was about to cover is probably covered in most of those slides. So I'll try and go a little fast. But I'm honored to be part of this forum. The maritime industry is India's gateway, for sure, to the world, 95% by volume and 70% by value. But that said, it's been a difficult year, right? But at the same time, this disruption has probably created immense opportunity for us to look at whether it is from a digitalization of brownfield or when we build from scratch in greenfield mega ports, the opportunity to digitize our ports in a way where they can be world-class for a long, long time. Let's move to the next slide, please. I won't spend too much time on this, but I think when people who want to invest in India say that infrastructure needs to be improved for us to invest more, I think eventually what that really means is how do you ensure that we can give them a cost structure which is competitive with the rest of the world, right? And I think when you look at things like the PLI scheme, it is actually an admission of the fact that some of our cost structures are a little not comparable with the rest of the world. And I think these are things that we need to address. In my opinion, for India, it is our ports and inland waterways, which can definitely be the cheapest form of freight transport, but also poses fewer roadblocks for infrastructure transformation. It's largely isolated from the rest of the economic activities as opposed to railways, airways, that have work around civilian and business areas. If we move to the next slide, please. If India aims to become an export-led economy, we need to ramp up our infrastructure. And I think the government of India is already on this mission and aims to augment the operational efficiency of ports and airports and railways and road transport to optimize logistics evacuation and increasing port-led development for India. At Cisco, we see infrastructure modernization as a top priority, and we've launched several initiatives to help transform India's logistics under our country digitization acceleration program, which aims to bring transformation in India's most critical sectors. 3 years ago, I saw that India was going to invest around $500 billion in these infrastructure-related matters or logistics-related matters. We've used our Cisco Connected Communities infrastructure, which is the first architecture of its kind to address the end-to-end needs of airways, roadways, railways, and waterways. And I go back to the point that Dhruv was making. I think eventually we can have one single platform across all logistics things, which I think the government of India also has a vision through NLP. If you go to the next slide, please. Now, as part of our efforts, I wish to highlight 3 projects that are leading the way, like a true flagship. At the Deen Dayal Port Trust, Kandla Port, we're leading the way for digitization of ports in India. We're working with them to improve 2 or 3 things. One, improve turnaround time that directly impacts capacity and revenue through marine operations planning and using IoT analytics. Preventing loss of revenue and equipment failure through real-time equipment monitoring. And the third thing that we are doing is increase efficiency through energy management and analytics. Now, the fourth thing, which is very interesting, is that if you look at various ways of communication, by the way, it's great to see that everybody is on WebEx over here. If you were to use collaboration technologies to increase employee safety and communications, and that's something that we are helping in the Deen Dayal Port Trust to do. At Sahibganj, which is an inland port, we are doing an intervention at a multimodal terminal to demonstrate impact on logistics operations using IoT, pipeline monitoring and control, integrated command and control centers for better control and visibility of operations. This will lead to improvement, obviously, in operational efficiency and reduction of revenue leakages. And then finally, with Mr. Vineet at Kolkata Port Trust, a project to digitize and optimize tugboat operations, where insights on tugboat movement, usage trips, distance, fuel burn, fuel logs, fuel burn for each tug in comparison with engine specs. So a lot of activity that we are doing, and a lot of investment that we are doing in these areas to demonstrate how digitalization or digitization can help either reduce cost or improve revenue or improve employee safety and communication. If you go to the next slide, please. While what I shared was the start, right? The outcome or the impact is also equally impressive, right? And we also have great global examples of this. The port of Rotterdam in Netherlands is Europe's largest port of cargo tonnage. In 2017, we joined hands with IBM to enable the port of Rotterdam's goal of hosting autonomous ships. And this is really futuristic, like autonomous ships by 2030, which is their primary objective. And enable IoT data services to drive greater efficiency and revenue. So what we've done is the port processes nearly 140,000 ships a year, almost one ship every 4 minutes, day and night. And coordinating the berthing of each vessel is remarkably complex. And I must be preaching to the converted already on this, but they need to enable extensive data analytics for more efficient ops. So example on data, on weather, water conditions, wind, visibility, tidal stream. And we've basically worked with IBM and their AI solutions to help figure out how we can bring this together. So if you go to the last slide, please. The digital transformation of our ports is still in its nascent stage. In the future, there will be disruptive technologies like 5G, and 5G is probably going to be a reality in 18 months from now. AI is clearly a reality already, and data analytics, automation, all grounded in end-to-end data security. I think this is going to be very critical. As you digitize more and more, the threat landscape and the threat canvas increases significantly. So while we are doing this digitalization, it is critically important that we think of cybersecurity and how we can keep the hackers out. All of this is a lot of progress is taking place in this. We still have a long way to go. I believe that today we are staring at our new dawn that is bringing in with an unprecedented opportunity. We are seeing examples of AR, digital twin, automated guided vehicles becoming a reality internationally. But for that, the one thing I would urge, and I'm sure a lot of the port heads over here would probably already be thinking about this, but 5G will play a very key role, especially in ports environment. And India needs to get on that path before anybody else. I think a private 5G LTE for the mega ports should be the first thing that we need to start thinking about. And we have capabilities in those areas which we can help each of these mega ports to think through. I'll leave it at this in terms of what we can do for this very, very important part of India's infrastructure. Happy to engage with each one of you separately or together in the future. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Samir. I'm sure there are lots of opportunities that you have been talking about will be created in all our ports, not just in India but across the globe. To have the last word now, we have Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, who's the Secretary, Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. He has held various assignments in infrastructure, including the Secretary, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and Chairman of the National Highways Authority of India. Under his leadership, we have prepared a detailed and implementable maritime vision. I request him to share his views on the highlights of this vision on developing world-class ports. Over to you, sir. So you're not audible yet.
Namaskar. Thank you, Christoph, for your message on Namaskar. I think, along with Christoph, I'd like to also thank all the other experts, practitioners from the leading ports of the world. The ideas and messages that you have shared will indeed be of great help in making the Maritime India Vision 2030, which was released by the Honorable Prime Minister today morning, into a reality in the days to come. Can I have the next slide, please? The next slide, please. I will just run you through what we have in the Vision 2030. Most of the ideas that you have given with regard to the major ports and to make the ports globally competitive, we have tried to find some kind of a place for those in the vision that we have for the future. We have, over the last few years, undertaken a number of reform measures. Some of them are highlighted here. But recently, as you would be aware, we have had the Major Ports Authorities Act, which was enacted by the Parliament. As was mentioned by the first speaker from PSA International, that while for world-class ports, we have to have updated digital networks, we have to ensure that the ports are of the size which are able to get the vessels which are now are becoming the order of the day, but also address the regulatory requirements. And as I mentioned, the government has been pushing the agenda of regulatory and policy reforms very vigorously. And in addition to the Major Ports Authority Act, which was just enacted last month, we've had new acts like the Recycling of Ships Act. We are in the process of amending our concession agreements. As was mentioned by some of the experts earlier. They have to be transparent, they have to be friendly, the risk sharing has to be of the kind that big mega risks which go with mega ports can be shared by these stakeholders in keeping with their abilities to be able to share such risks. So that's also another thing which we've been working very seriously on. In the budget announcement by the finance minister recently, we had other major announcement with regard to promotion of flagging of vessels in India. Now, as was mentioned, the mega ports require some kind of a community to develop around that. It has to be ports, it has to be shipping, it has to be waterways, all together. And therefore, with a view to have the entire ecosystem working hand in hand. The next slide, if you look at that, the vision has looked comprehensively at ports, shipping, and waterways in an integrated manner and has listed out 150 plus initiatives to bring about the kind of changes which some of you mentioned. In the next slide, I would like to highlight the initiatives that are with regard to the ports and to make them world-class ports. The next slide, can I go to that? Now, since we are talking of world-class ports, I'd just like to briefly mention the kind of initiatives that we have in the Vision 2030. While your ideas and thoughts are of great value to us in charting out the paths to make the vision a reality, we also expect many of you present here to participate in the new opportunities which have now opened up in the Indian ports, shipping and waterways sector. And therefore, I'll just quickly take you through the initiatives that we have identified. And along with the initiatives, we have also drawn up an action plan for making each of these initiatives a reality. For the port sector, as you can see, developing world-class ports, smart ports, reducing logistic costs by multimodal shift, that is to develop the community system, including the shipping, the waterways, the coastal shipping, alongside the regulatory reforms which required to go along with it, and of course, the need for green technology, as was mentioned by Mr. Soroka from Los Angeles Port, traditional infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and green technology are the things which we all have to look at for making the world-class ports of the future. So the vision has those initiatives listed out, and to make it a reality, we also have an action plan which has been now put in the public domain. I would urge upon all the stakeholders to look at these opportunities. With regard to deep draft ports, specific locations have been identified. We got to now prioritize them and take them further. With regard to mechanization and upgradation, with the new Major Ports Authorities Act, which has now come into place, many of the operations of the ports would go into the PPP mode, and 39 berths, which are now serviced by the ports themselves, are already listed out for being put on the PPP mode, and they will be coming in the market starting from this year itself. Deep draft for larger vessels is clearly listed out, and we expect that our existing ports would also grow in size and be able to cater to the ships of the future. The new greenfield ports, of course, would necessarily have to cater to this requirement. The need for multimodal shift is now ingrained in our policy. All our ports have been working towards having coastal jetties, coastal berths, inland vessel berths wherever feasible, so that the traditional infrastructure for all the modes on for the water side of the transport movement, also the rail and road movement go hand in hand. The next slide gives the other set of action plans that we have identified. For the digital initiatives, specific digital initiatives, 50 plus, have been listed out, and many of our ports have started already working towards it. As was mentioned, the move from the PCS platform to the National Logistics Maritime Platform is one such step. But when we talk of communities, I think now that we are in a global forum, I would like to urge upon these communities. We have been talking of these communities around the port, but now it's time, when we talk of global logistics supply chains, to think of communities cutting across countries. And I think this is going to be very important, starting from some of the documents which we use in our sector. For example, the bill of lading is one document where we find the institutional and the regulatory setup that we have requires hand-holding and a much larger community effort, so that we are able to have standards, some kind of a uniformity across countries, so that these things can be moved seamlessly across. And the paperless, faceless, transparent systems that we're trying to develop will happen if we are able to have the community system, which we have been building around ports, to be further expanded to take care of things cutting across ports across countries of the world. Sustainable and green ports, of course, is a thing which we have to do as a service to the humanity at large, and the initiatives that have been mentioned, the vision talks of it at great length, and again opens up new opportunities for people who are interested in taking up these things for our ports in India. Going to the next slide, we have listed out the initiatives at great length with regard to shipping. Similarly, the next slide, which I have, gives out the initiatives that we have on the waterways. And the vision, therefore, I'd like to urge, looks at the entire domain as an integrated sector where all these things have to develop hand in hand. If you go to the next slide, I'll just give you an idea of the initiatives we already started on. The first one I mentioned, the Major Ports Authority Act, is already in place. We have a capital policy for dependent industries. We're in the process of revising the concession agreements. We have a new policy guidelines on land management with our ports. And as we move to the landlord port model, this is going to be more important with a new act, and to build up the kind of communities that we are thinking of. The mega ports, Vidhavan, as was mentioned earlier by Chairman JNPT, he is already pursuing it with great vigor, with very clear deadlines, so that we are able to have these initiatives grounded quickly. Similar are the initiatives, the recent initiatives on the shipping and the waterway sector. I leave it to you. I'm sure the vision document is there with you by now. It's on the website. Please have a look at that. It also has alongside the action plan and also the set of projects which will help make some of these initiatives a reality. We've tried to structure them, and we would be glad that some of you look at it and start thinking of joining hands to make some of these projects happening on the ground. The next slide talks of the significant opportunities, as I mentioned, which are there for the world community, the investor community, to be looking at. starting from the port ecosystem development to port operations services, to waterways and shipping and cruise. Given India's size, India's growth, India's market, there are huge opportunities and the vision clearly lays it out. The action plan lays it out. The set of projects that we are given lays it out. Thanks to these efforts, in the last few weeks, we have had record number of MOUs. Many people, many investors have already taken advantage of this and signed up on MOUs, which I hope will become reality in the days to come. But these opportunities are now out there, and I look forward to your active participation in some of them. And with all that happening, these are kind of targets that we have for our ports, shipping, and the maritime sector. At least 3 mega ports in the next few years. Similarly, the costs can only come down, as was mentioned, if we can do movements, avoid unnecessary transshipment, and I hope with the initiatives that we have taken, we can make that happen. And with our size and the efficiencies we plan to capture, we should be able to have more than 75% of such movement happening on our ports in the years to come. Similarly, we have very specific targets with regard to reducing the dwell time, turnaround time. All of them will help reduce the logistic cost. Last of all, the slide highlights the last slide, if I can have that. It highlights the next slide, please. Yeah, basically with all these initiatives, the vision highlights the kind of investments we expect, the kind of jobs it will create, and the advantage that would accrue to the trade as a whole. So in brief, I tried to give you an idea of what the vision presents. I would like to thank all the experts for the ideas that you've given. Many of them get captured in the vision, but I'm sure the fine print and the other detailing that we do when we get these projects on the ground will be taking care of that. The regulatory changes, the digital kind of ecosystem that is required for that, we all are absolutely committed to it, and we are working towards it. And anyone who invests in our port, shipping, and the waterway sector, I'm sure at the end of the day would have a delightful experience. And I would again thank you all for your participation, and I look forward to continuing partnership with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for a very comprehensive insight into the vision. I'm sure all these stakeholders had a flavor of how this vision will shape the maritime activities in the coming decade and beyond. And over to you, Vineet, for the Q&A and summing up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we got a lot of questions in the chat box, but keeping the time constraint in mind, I'll just request one question. I'll take one question from me with each participant. Mr. Chi Fung, you spoke about landlord port. You spoke about regulatory framework. You brought a new dimension to it about the regulatory framework. The Government of India has just now passed the new Port Act. So what are your what is your take on that as to does it address the needs for the kind of development we think we are planning for, and what can be there on your wish list? What more can be there on your wish list?
Thank you, Chairman. I think the Major Ports Act certainly is a very landmark in terms of the empowerment of each of the port trusts and the ability, right, to make more market-driven decisions. And I think in the long run, this is in the right direction, especially to provide that level playing field between major ports as well as non-major ports. Ultimately, I think, in terms of a long-term direction, regulation, not only in India, but around the world, should eventually move towards lighter touch as ports, as you know it, right? It's not only a local business, but it's very much interconnected, very driven by the global dynamics, right? So, I think the dust certainly needs to settle with regard to the new Port Act being enacted. And this is one that certainly you have our assurance that we will work very closely, right, with the government of India as well as the port trust, right, to ensure the proper implementation.
Thank you, Chi. I think that what you are saying is that we should be more flexible, moving to a more flexible regime. That we are moving in that direction. To Mr. Tanaka from Osaka, Mr. Tanaka, you are a port which is you have a big port and you have a city thriving together, both tourism and this. And tell us something about as to how these two things, which they normally do not go together, when you make a port, the city starts congesting or otherwise. How do you have been able to take these two things together, and what are the learnings which you want to share with us, so that when we develop mega ports, we take care of these issues and society concerns at large?
なので、その観光面と物流はつながらないんですけども、このような状態の中では大きな渋滞が発生するはずです。で、我々今後メガポートを構築することによって、絶対このような例えば観光だったりそういうルートとインターセプトすることがありますけれども、どのような課題を意識しないといけないんですか。大阪市はどのように対応しているか。
まず観光と物流のトータルボリュームを確実に捕まえて、それをきっちりとそのトラフィックジャムのないように流すというのをシステマティックにしたいと思っていますっていうのを一つ言ってください。
So one of the first most important points is to accurately grasp what is the specific volume that you expect for tourism itself, as well as for logistics, and to be very aware of the traffic flow that you will have to handle.
で、夢洲のマンメイドアイランドは390ヘクタールあるので、物流機能と、ツーリズム機能を完全に分離するというのも2つ目のアイデアです。
So the man-made island, the Umeshima World Expo site that we mentioned earlier, because the island has as much as 390 hectares, it is possible for us to completely separate the logistics and tourism aspects of the island.
で、加えてこの中でのロジスティックっていうのは1.4 million TU for the future なので、それ以上のカパシティ能力はないかと思っています。
And because we already have the data in hand, we can have an expectation that the island will have to handle 1.4 million TEU, and there won't be any more traffic that we need to handle.
Anyway, this is the first trial in Japan, so we really hope to be successful. That's all.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Mr. Christoph, you have great experience of having a landlord port model and equally good on the training and upskilling part of it. You mentioned about breaking silos, and it's a very good target. But we'd like to know from you as to what kind of stakeholder involvement and training and skilling of your staff you have to do, or what we should do, so that this seamless and synergetic understanding between all the stakeholders can be done.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman. Maybe first, as a general remark, I think why it's important is why we are when we are seeing the general performance of the cost of logistics in India, it's on the high side compared to some international examples. What's the main reason for that? The main reason that is all those, and it's also a message that's not that popular to a lot of shipping agents and freight forwarders and so on in Europe, but we're also delivering the same message to in our own port. It's of a lot of players are making money with those inefficiencies. It's so because of the system is not that efficient, they can charge for additional services that are there. So on that part where we are strongly on the ease of doing business, we are really believing in single window, and I think there the Indian government is moving, is really heading into the right direction. It's in my own Indian experience, let's say let's say that I have to urge you to really use the data and to not just see it as a statistics tool afterwards, but to really also use it from the beginning as from planning and go to the whole step. Because I've seen some examples, and not all, and there is a lot of improvements have been done where people are, all data is there, all data is collected, but it's more used for statistics than for real planning and operational efficiency. And it's a very high level answer, Chairman. But I think that's the most important one, real implementation. How do we manage to do is we started a lot with stakeholder consultation and trying to convince people to use platforms, but we are now for some critical applications that are for us custom security, but also really efficiency related. We are now moving forward to make them mandatory. So it's not, so we are, let's say, we're imposing them. It's not only, we're imposing them really to private sector. And of course, it's always a debate. It's the debate on where do you want to have your balance. But because of efficiency, we think it's important. On skill development, there it's easy. It's training. It's the we're investing a lot. We're investing a lot in training. With also in what we call senior management programs. So bringing in also international and outside experts to our own organization. And in my opinion, because I'm, as you probably know, I'm quite familiar with the Indian vision and all the documents that have been prepared by IPA. I think it's really on raising capabilities of officers coming in system. It's really a great thing. It will be really necessary to further associate private sector with those same efforts, so that there's a very good understanding between. Then I'll stop, Chairman. But that there's a very good understanding between private sector and public sector. And unfortunately, COVID hasn't helped in implementing, of course, all those skill efforts. But I think the documents that are there, everything that's been prepared for the Indian sector, it's really the right direction to go. Sorry to be so long.
Thank you, Christoph. Thank you. Coming on to Dhruv, I'd like to know from you, how do you plan to take the journey from internet port to smart port? You have mentioned two words in your presentation: internet port to a smart port, and how to address the concerns on cyber security and privacy.
Sir, I think I think both these two answers I can actually address it and give it to you as one single answer. But I think and I think a lot of that also lies in what my good colleague from Cisco mentioned, and I think that's got to do with, first of all, when you look at the horizontal integration that I spoke about, where you have to look at and again steps that the port is already doing and ports are already doing, which is making their port operating systems more robust, making their enterprise systems more robust, application of a lot of IoT and 5G, and 5G is still some time away, but when you have these different technologies which are there in each of the business verticals, that's implemented, and then you have, along with that, a strong digital ecosystem also created. I think you will move towards being a smart port, because then what you will end up having, you will have real-time data, and not only have real-time data, but you will have real-time data which is being processed, probably not only on the cloud but probably on the edge, which will enable decision making to be extremely quick. And therefore combination of platforms, 5G, IoT, sensors, the digitization efforts which are already underway is, I think, the basic answer to how you're going to move towards from internet port to a smart port. And the second piece with regards to cybersecurity, sir, I think the answer is there in the digitization shift itself. I think as long as you have very strong advocacy by the government, and I think the government here is taking that step in terms of laying down what needs to be the standards, what needs to be the platform. I think at that stage itself, if you have very strong advocacy about what should be the norms of cybersecurity that each of the participating stakeholders use, I think we will be able to manage that challenge as well. So I would say, sir, this is broadly it.
Thank you, Dhruv. Thank you very much. Moving on to Sameer. Sameer, you raised a very valid. Sorry, Rizwan, you raised a very valid point about overcapacity and threshold levels in megaports. So since we are embarking on this journey of megaports, and what should be the threshold levels, or what should be the benchmarks on which we should we should operate?
So thanks, Chairman Saab. This is about really demand planning and capacity planning. So coordination is extremely important in terms of both state as well as center-led port development, and also in terms of inland terminals like MMLPs, the connectivity of these MMLPs to the ports, the connectivity of the industrial zones to these ports, the land outside the port for industrial development. Is also very key to actually be part of the master plan, like the way I mentioned in my narrative. So the important point out here is the demand planning and the supply coordination, both in terms of inland but also in terms of ports, is critically important, not just for the short term but also for the long term per se, right? I mean, as much as we possibly can. The second point is extremely important, is that when we do PPP projects, I mean, there's a lot of things that change during the course of the PPP concession per se, right? And so therefore, there must be an element where we can actually adjust for demand during the course of the 30 years or 50 years of concession period per se, right? Because demand actually, whatever assumptions that we actually put in terms of demand forecast and demand planning will always change, because there are so many assumptions that we take at the time of capacity development and building. So in short, it is really about the demand forecast and the coordinated supply that we actually build. And of course, the supply has to be built ahead of the curve, which is the demand curve in that sense, Chairman.
Thank you, Rizwan. Sameer, will you like to answer a question on we keep on upgrading in technology, but then there comes the question of compatibility and harnessing the full potential of that technology. We buy technologies, but we are not able to harness them to the full. What are your two recommendations on these things? Compatibility, so that whatever we buy today is relevant tomorrow, and also on the other thing about the benchmarking of the harnessing potential.
Yeah, understood, sir. So I think this is a really important question. And, in a lot of cases, what we've seen is that we jump straight away to what are the use cases we need to implement. And maybe it is, for maybe a couple of months or 1 month before you jump onto the technology that you want to use. If we can spend time on figuring out what is that digital blueprint, right? What is this sport going to look like in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Now, sometimes very difficult to understand what it might look 15 years from now, but 5 and 10 years, I think those are scenarios that can be built from a blueprint perspective. I think that probably is the first step. We actually have also what we call a business architecture, which links to this, to your business, right? So what should your business architecture look like? Linked to the business of that port as a second step. Third step, I think, is about identifying what use cases are important in the first 3 years, the next 3 years, and then making sure that you're using more software-oriented SaaS-based solutions. Because the more software-oriented solutions you use, more SaaS-based solutions you use, much easier to upgrade. And most SaaS-based solutions today from even companies like ours or anybody are open API based. So you can integrate other ecosystem players into those. without having to have a problem of how do you integrate compatibility and all of those things. So I think those would be the 3 steps that we would follow. We've done this for a very large airport, and the same principles can apply. In fact, we did this for a very large airport city recently, sir. And the same principles apply for that. So happy to have this conversation to kind of take this forward.
Thank you, Samir. So last but not the least, sir, Secretary sir, sir, we have the Port Act passed. Sir, we have the vision in our hands 2030. So where do you see the maritime sector of India 10 years from now as regards service, as regards competition, and as regards cost?
Thank you, Vineet. The vision clearly gives the answer to that. The very last slide which I had gives an idea of what the KPI indicator shows, that in terms of service, in terms of size, in terms of our global ranking, in terms of what we handle, there has to be a quantum jump. We have to become world class. And as the last slide, which was shown as part of my presentation, at least 3 ports handling more than 300 million metric tons per year. 75% of the transshipment happening on Indian ports. We want to do PPP in a big way. 85% of the traffic handled through private operators. That should be good news for the investors. It's part of the vision. And the recent policy initiatives are all in that direction. 85% of the cargo to be handled by the PPP mode. The dwell time reduction by at least half, if not more. The daily output of ships going up to 30,000 tons. Improvement in global rankings on shipbuilding, and to become #1 in ship recycling. We have the Ship Recycling Act in place. The rules are in the process of getting notified. Our yards are becoming Hong Kong Convention compliant. So shipping companies across the world will make sure we take care of all the environmental concerns. And our yards should double up their capacity of recycling, which we right now do about 4.5 million metric tons to 9 million metric tons by 2019. Cruise, given India's market and size, the annual cruise passenger numbers going up to at least 1.5 million. Again, a huge market. We have new terminals coming up. We have an industry-friendly cruise policy. We have rationalized the berth charges. There is one of the biggest middle class in the world, which is coming, growing, and therefore at least 1.5 to 2 million of cruise passengers emanating from India. Similarly, seafarers, our training institution, the initiatives by the DG Shipping in terms of making e-learning, digital examination possible, we are able to impart world-class instruction and provide world-class manpower. So shipping companies across the world with fully capable, empowered, and English-speaking seafarers would be an ideal choice. We expect to have at least 20% of the seafarers of the world coming from India in the days to come, and at least 60% of our renewable our energy needs for our port sector from the renewable sector. is what we at least the bare minimum which we need to achieve. And so Vineet, I suppose the last slide had captured it all, but thanks for giving me a chance to further elaborate on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The future is very bright, and under your guidance, sir, all the ports and the entire shipping sector in India will definitely make this possible. Sir, after the entire interaction, it's very clear the mega ports are the future. They are not only will be the mega infrastructure with these smart technologies, but will be propellers of growth and sustainability and friendly to the community at large. And I like to thank all our esteemed speakers, Secretary Sir, all our esteemed speakers from across the globe, our viewers who are connected with us and participated in this seminar. My co-host, Mr. Sanjay Sethi, team from FICCI and teams from JNPT and Shyamprasad Mukherjee Port have worked hard to make this a success. In the end, I once again thank you for all and everyone for joining and sharing your thoughts. This will definitely, give us a very good start.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Planning and developing of the mega ports. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you all.